They always said her smile lit up a room. And it did, just not the right room. Not the one where she walked down the aisle in a white gown and delicate veil. No, her place was always just behind the bride, holding bouquets, fluffing trains, adjusting veils, and whispering, "You've got this." Her name is Elodie, and she had been a bridesmaid 7 times. 7 perfectly coordinated dresses hung in a garment bag in her closet, each one holding a different story. A different day she clapped and cried and cheered for someone else. Tonight, Elodie found herself in an old Victorian inn nestled in the hills of Vermont, helping her cousin Lila prepare for the morning wedding. The room smelled of lavender and old books. The fireplace crackled softly, and the night air slipped in through a slightly open window, cooling her flushed cheeks. She sat on the edge of a window seat in her silky robe, watching the stars blink above the mountains. Somewhere outside, fireflies danced over the garden path, where tomorrow's ceremony would take place. It should have felt lonely, but somehow it didn't. Elodie sipped a bit of herbal tea and let the soft clinking of the cup soothe her thoughts. Memories of past weddings played like silent films in her mind. Dresses she'd worn, toasts she'd given, men she'd almost thought might be the one, until they weren't. But tonight felt different. Not because of the wedding, but because of the letter tucked between the pages of an old book she found in the inn's library. Was a handwritten letter addressed to the one who waits. It wasn't dated. The handwriting was flowing and a bit faded. She almost didn't read it, but she did. To the one who's always waiting for her story to begin. You don't know this yet, but the love you've been searching for has been waiting for you too. You haven't missed it. You haven't been passed over. Your story simply needed time to grow wild and deep, like ivy over a stone wall. When it comes, it will feel like returning home. Be patient. Be ready. You are not forgotten. Elodie blinked. The words echoed like a whisper from another world. That night, she slept the best she had in years. Not because she'd found someone, but because, for the first time, she believed she still could. And somewhere, beneath a canopy of stars and the hush of night, 2 strangers passed each other on a quiet garden path, both feeling just for a second that the wind had carried something more. Something like possibility. The morning of the wedding dawned with golden light creeping across the floorboards. Elodie stirred slowly in bed, the soft cotton sheets tangled around her legs. The letter still sat beside her, folded neatly on the nightstand. She'd dreamt of it all night, of handwriting that knew her, and promises written for someone who felt forgotten. Downstairs, the inn was buzzing. Florists bustled in with blooms, waitstaff set silverware with practiced hands, and Lila today's bride floated around like a champagne bubble in a silk robe. Elodie moved through the motions with grace. She smiled, she fixed a fallen curl on the flower girl. She handed tissues, poured mimosas, and tied the back of the dress just right. But when her duties paused, when no one was looking, she wandered. Out the back door and into the garden. It was a walled garden, overgrown in a romantic kind of way, like it had secrets it wasn't quite ready to share. And that's where she saw him, kneeling among the lavender, hands in the earth, shirt sleeves rolled to the elbows, hair slightly messy in a way that only made sense on certain kinds of people, like poets or heartbreakers, or maybe gardeners. He looked up, not startled, not bothered, just curious. "Morning," he said, voice gravelly and calm, like someone who spoke rarely but meant every word. "I'm not supposed to be back here," she blurted. He smiled slightly. "Neither am I." That made her laugh, and the sound surprised her. It had been a while since something felt truly funny. Over the next few days after the bouquet had been tossed, after the newlyweds had driven off under a rain of petals, Elodie didn't check out of the inn. She extended her stay, just a few days. To rest, she told herself. But somehow, she ended up back in the garden. He was always there, trimming, planting, pausing. His name was Jonah. He didn't ask her many questions, just offered her a pair of gloves and said, "Lavender's best planted in stillness. You got stillness in you?" She didn't know the answer, but she knelt beside him and planted anyway. Days passed like petals falling off a bloom. Softly, quietly, meaningfully. They didn't flirt exactly. They just understood each other. He told her about old trees and soil types. She told him about every wedding she'd stood in, every dress that didn't quite fit right, and every time someone toasted to her being next. But it never happened. He listened, really listened. Then one evening, as the sky turned the color of dusty plum, he handed her something. A small book, leather-bound, worn at the edges. "Found this tucked behind the stone bench," he said. Inside was another letter, same handwriting, to the one who thinks love has passed her by. And again, it felt like it was written just for her. That night, Elodie sat on the garden bench, wrapped in a blanket, heart full of questions and possibility. Jonah sat beside her, not too close, not too far. "I think someone left these letters here for a reason," she whispered. He looked up at the stars. "Maybe they're still being written." She looked at him, at the way his eyes held the kind of silence that wasn't empty, but peaceful. Maybe she had been waiting at the wrong altar all along. Not for a man in a tuxedo, but for one in muddy boots, who knew how to plant beauty in quiet places. And as the stars came out, and the wind carried the scent of lavender and old books, Elodie smiled. She didn't need to be the bride. Not today. But maybe, just maybe, she'd finally found someone worth walking beside, even if it started in a garden. It had been 4 days since the wedding. 3 since she started helping Jonah in the garden. 2 since she'd laughed so hard she forgot to feel self-conscious. And just 1 since she'd noticed the way he always looked down before smiling at her, like he didn't want her to see how much it meant. Elodie still hadn't packed. Her suitcase sat open, untouched, like a bookmark saving her place. Every morning, she wandered into the garden with tea in hand, hair still tousled from sleep, and there he'd be, tending, trimming, waiting. Not waiting for her exactly, but not waiting either. She liked the quiet with him. It didn't demand anything. It just allowed. On the 5th morning, the innkeeper, Mrs. Winslow, handed Elodie an envelope. Another one turned up in the library, she said with a wink. Seems this place has a bit of magic in its walls. Elodie smiled politely, heart fluttering with familiar excitement. But when she opened it, her fingers paused mid-fold. This one wasn't addressed to the one who waits. It was addressed to my dearest Jonah. Her breath caught. The handwriting was the same. Inside were words soft and yearning. I knew I'd see you again here, if anywhere. This place always held our best pieces, didn't it? If you find this, I hope you haven't stopped believing. I hope the garden still speaks to you the way it used to. And if someone else has your heart now, I hope she deserves it. No signature, no date. Just heartbreak wrapped in calligraphy. Elodie folded it slowly, her hands still. So, Jonah had a past here. A deep one. Maybe a still glowing one. And suddenly, the garden didn't feel quite as magical. It felt like a memory she didn't belong to. Like she was standing in the pages of someone else's love story. That afternoon, she didn't show up to the garden. She stayed in the reading room with her tea, watching the sun move across the hardwood floor. Time didn't pass so much as float. Around dusk, there was a knock on the doorframe. Jonah stood there, dirt on his hands, eyes softer than usual. "You okay?" he asked. She held up the letter without a word. His eyes flicked to it. Recognition, regret, something else. "She wrote that," he said quietly, stepping in. "Elena?" Elodie's heart did a slow turn in her chest. "Was she?" He nodded. "Once. A long time ago. I thought I might love her. She left, and I buried it in the soil here." He looked at Elodie, finally meeting her eyes. "I didn't expect you." The silence stretched. Tension not from drama, but from care. From not wanting to say the wrong thing and ruin something rare. "Do you still love her?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. He shook his head once. "Number. But I wonder if part of me was still waiting for something. Until you showed up." Elodie's chest tightened. With ache, with hope, with not knowing what came next. That night, they didn't meet in the garden. They didn't speak again. But across the hall, she heard the sound of a chair being pushed back, a pen scratching softly across a page. And in her room, Elodie stared at the ceiling, wondering if, maybe, just maybe, a love story can have more than one beginning. That's it for this chapter of 7 Times the Bridesmaid, Never a Bride. This is a continuous sleep story. Will Elodie go home and never see the gardener again? Will she come back to see if there is a love connection? Will Jonah open up? Stay tuned next week for the next chapter of this sleep story. In the next few weeks, I will need my mashers to help me as the story progresses. Drop a comment below. Let me know what you think. Let's talk. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thanks, Mishmashers.